Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? In the months leading up to a big milestone birthday, I decided it was time to stop sidelining my dreams and become the hero of my own journey. I knew I didn't want to do it alone, so I created this podcast to learn from other moms further ahead on their quest, so their words of wisdom and lessons learned could help light the way for mine. I created this podcast for myself, but I hope you'll come along with me and find some treasures of your own. Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Mother's Quest podcast. In this episode, I was so honored to have a conversation with my children's holistic pediatrician, Dr. Elisa Song, founder of Whole Family Wellness, creator of the online resource Healthy Kids, Happy Kids, and an amazing mother to her daughter and son. If you tuned into episode 5, you know Elisa gave me permission to replay her interview of me from her Thriving Child Summit, where we talked about my motherhood journey with my older son, how Elisa became a key part of the puzzle to help him thrive, and what led me to create Mother's Quest. In this interview, I got to turn the tables and learn about the influences that shaped Elisa and how she approaches living an epic life. Elisa is a board-certified Stanford, NYU, and UCSF-trained holistic pediatrician. In 2005, she forged a daring path by going out on her own and founding Whole Family Wellness, an integrative pediatric practice in Belmont, California, one of the first and most highly regarded holistic pediatric practices in the country. She's also a lecturer for the Center of Education and Development in Clinical Homeopathy, Academy for Pain Research, Institute for Functional Medicine, and Holistic Pediatric Association, among others. Through Whole Family Wellness, and now with her online resource, Healthy Kids, Happy Kids, Elisa helps thousands of parents like me get to the root causes of health concerns for our children. And she helps us understand how to heal them from the inside out, utilizing conventional pediatrics along with functional medicine, holistic nutrition, homeopathy, acupuncture, herbal medicine, and essential oils. In this conversation, Elisa and I talk about how the legacy of brave women in her life, making courageous choices, impacted her and her sisters and set them all on a path to become healers and helpers. Her grandmother and mother, who both came to America from Korea, instilled independence, strength, and grit, which she relied on to follow her passion in integrative medicine. We also talk about connected parenting, the importance of scheduling special time with our children, and the need to prioritize our own health and well-being, something Elisa and I admit we both need to focus more on. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Elisa is such an inspiration and source of wisdom and healing for my family. I'm thrilled to share her with you. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Elisa, welcome back to the Mother's Quest podcast.
Thank you very much, Julie.
So I wanted to, right before we started this, I asked you if it was okay to be real with any listeners about what happened with us. You and I actually recorded what was an amazing conversation for this interview a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I was trying new software, and it turned out that our interview wasn't saved. And so we had to start again. And the reason why I wanted to share it is because I had actually posted in our Facebook group that morning an article about growth mindset versus fixed mindset and how we can be aware of that for our children. And then by the end of the day, I realized that that was the lesson I was going to have to learn for myself.
Yep.
So, definitely having patience, but just persevering. All of this podcasting and using technology, it's all totally new to me, and at times can feel really frustrating, but I'm trying to just keep moving my way through it, and I'm always learning more as I go. So this is just another example of that.
Yes, and we will have another fantastic interview.
Yes, and so we wanted to say also that we may not recreate, well, we won't recreate exactly the conversation that we had last time, but I'm sure there will be some other questions and things that come up that will be a gift in this conversation that wouldn't otherwise be there. And I'm going to also link in the show notes to the article from the researcher Carol Dweck. She's a researcher at Stanford, in the show notes, and maybe that is important information that some mother out there needed, and that was the reason why this all happened. So, what I like to start with is a question initially to get a better sense of how you grew up as a child and the impact that your mother had in shaping who you are today. So, could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your mother?
Yeah, well, when I think about my childhood and I think about really the big influences in my life, I really have to go back to my mother's mother. So women have always played a huge role in my life growing up. And in fact, we were and still are a family of women. I have two sisters, no brothers. Um, and in fact, my parents actually got divorced when I was quite young. And so my father was not very involved in my childhood. So it was my mother and my grandmother. And when I say my mother's mother played such a huge role, it's because really I look at her as the model of a strong, independent, fiercely brave mother who raised her two daughters on her own. And this was way back in Korea. My mother was born in 1943. And, back then in Korea, and, yes, even to this day, women were not expected to have a leadership role at home or, of course, out in the world in business. And my mother's father passed away when she was just a toddler from tuberculosis. And so my grandmother, instead of then immediately trying to find another husband, right, to support her and to support her two young daughters at that time, my aunt and my mom, she actually went back and became a teacher. And she was a successful teacher and raised her two young daughters all by herself, and really never had to rely on that outside support. And I think, even when she moved to America and I grew up with her, everyone in the community, in her church community, loved her and just knew her as this strong, kind, adventurous, funny, compassionate woman. And, she instilled those values in my mother. And, my mother growing up in the late 40s and early 50s in Korea, that was the time of the Korean War in 1950 and 51. And the stories that she has growing up in that time are incredible. But her story is really also of independence and bravery. And, in high school, instead of just really using that as a way to prepare for a life as a homemaker, she was really gifted as an athlete and was on the champion swim team. She was a breaststroke champion, and was really, really, really smart and bright, and ended up going to medical school and graduated as one of only 5 women in her medical school class. And after that, she made a huge leap and left her country, learned English, and came to America to do her residency in New York in OBGYN.
Wow.
And, during that time, so that was, gosh, she moved here in 1968 to do her residency. And during that residency, which back then was, even more grueling than medical residencies are nowadays, she had me and my sister. I'm a twin. And so she found the time to be a mother and a resident. And then subsequently have my younger sister. So there was the 3 of us and my father, and it became quickly clear that she needed my grandmother's support. So my grandmother came and lived with us and helped to raise us. And, she always had this drive, my mother, and, we moved to New Jersey, and she created her own very successful OBGYN practice from scratch. I mean, she didn't know anyone in our little town in Demarest, and she had then one of the most successful practices in the county, and really, we saw her work so hard almost every day, morning till night, and never once did she complain. I mean, she just worked so that she could support us, support her kids, and also allow us to, have fun vacations and, have amazing Christmas presents, right? The holidays are coming up, and, we never lacked for anything. And she just did it. She had that drive, that motivation. And also she made it clear that being a mother was a priority. So when she built her office, she attached it right next to our home, so that even when she was working late, she always came out to have a family dinner with us. So, yes, was she gone out of the house delivering babies a lot? She was, but we always knew that in her mind, her daughters were the reason for it, right? We were why she was doing all of that and working so hard. And, for me as a mother, that's what I think I would love to do for my kids, is have them see that, I can work hard. I'm dedicating my life to themselves and to our family. And, you do that by having dedication and grit. We all hear about grit nowadays, and we want our kids to have grit. Well, you have to model that, right? You have that perseverance and that independence, and most of all, you have to have that love, right? You have to have that love for that family that you're trying to create and serve and nurture. So I do hope that I'm able to do that for my kids, as my mother did for me and her mother did for her. So that's really, this, you know, female matriarchal legacy that is part of my family, and I hope to, bring forward as my kids grow up.
So when you told me this the first time you shared it, I had no idea that your mother was also a doctor and your sister is a doctor too, your twin, right?
Yep. They're both OBGYNs, and my younger sister is a doctor as well. She's not a medical doctor, but she is a clinical high school psychologist. So we all, I think, were drawn towards, healing, right? And nurturing and caring for others.
I think that's incredible. And I had this immediate image of you sitting in your office when we come for visits, and now imagining you literally, on the shoulders of these incredible women in your family. And it's not a surprise to me. You are such an amazing healer yourself and mother, because I've seen you with your children too. And I know that you are having that same impact on them. Now I know where it all came from.
Yeah, we can only strive, right? So, and I mean, I definitely have some not so fine mama moments, but I think it's
As we all do.
right? How we lead by example and do our best, right? That's all we can do.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Really appreciative to hear it again. I want to move into now talking about your epic life, and that some of the listeners may have had a chance to tune into episode number 5, where you graciously let me share the interview you did of me on your Thriving Child Summit. And you were one of the first people I got a chance to talk about my plans for Mother's Quest and this idea of living an epic life. So I know that you've heard it before, and I want a chance to delve into each of those elements of an epic life. But before we do that, I want to ask you a more general question. I'm really curious about what you feel like you are most on a quest for now.
Oh, wow. I think for me now, my quest, my journey in medicine has been a really amazing one. I am an integrative pediatrician, so that means that I do practice conventional pediatrics, but I've incorporated now functional medicine, homeopathy, nutrition, acupuncture, herbal medicine, essential oils. So it's really an integrative approach to helping kids thrive. And my practice, which started out as whole child wellness and is now whole family wellness, has been incredibly successful. And I'm so blessed to have kids and mamas like you that just brighten up my day every day, right? And keep me going, and really are the reason why I want to continue to do all this great work. But, at a certain point, and this was probably maybe, a good 2-3 years ago, when the practice was just so full, and I just didn't have the time or the bandwidth to see more kids. And I had to close my practice, which was heartbreaking to me, because there's so many kids in need, so many families in need. And of course, I do still take new patients, especially ones that are very complicated and sick, but I can't see all the patients that call. But there's not enough hours in the day. And at this point now, with 2 young kids, I'd like to come home and have dinner with them and be able to put them to bed, at least on most nights. And so that was a tough decision. And I just thought to myself, I have to do something more. I have to be able to get the power of holistic care for kids out to the world so parents know that there is another way to help their kids if their kids are sick or are suffering, or they just want to optimize their kids' health. And so that's my quest right now, is to bring this knowledge to parents and mamas everywhere. And that's part of why I did the Thriving Child Summit, to bring together experts and thought leaders in holistic medicine for women and kids and parenting, and really do all of those interviews. I think there were 37 or 38 amazing interviews. All of them were so special and unique, and shared different value to parents. I think no matter what stage they are in their parenting life or their medical path with their kids. And prior to that, I had started an online website called Healthy Kids, Happy Kids. And that's been my baby. That's really where I see my future heading, is to be able to provide an online resource for parents when they're looking for answers on, well, why are fish oils important? Which fish oils should I give? What dosage should I give? Why is stress so important to be able to handle appropriately? How much sleep should my kids get? All of those, questions that parents have, but they don't really have a trusted source for holistic kind of alternative care for their kids. So that's my new quest, right? To bring holistic pediatric care and pediatric functional medicine out into the world and have it be as commonplace as, the information that you might find from a conventional pediatric website. So I am working towards that, and that is the vision that I hold.
I'm so grateful that you're doing that, because I have a lot of friends, some who are in the Bay Area and your practice is full, but even many who are not in this geographic location who I've wanted to refer to you. And now I feel like there is a way that your approach and all of the resources that you have can reach them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress, and the Healthy Kids, Happy Kids page, it's just www.healthykidshappykids.com. I launched that in June, and it's been so well received by parents. And the Thriving Child Summit that I hosted in October, that you were a part of, we reached parents in over, at last count, it was I think over 28 countries around the world. So. Parents are hungry for this information, and they really need a place to turn. So I'm working diligently to get that going and really provide all the resources that parents need.
So I'll make sure to include a link to your sites and to the Thriving Child Summit in the show notes. And I know that the summit is still available. Those interviews are available to anybody that wants to purchase access to them, correct?
Yes, they are. They're available for purchase through the Thriving Child Summit website. And the talks were amazing. I mean, your talk was so amazing to inspire moms on what it really means to live an epic life and how they might think about that for themselves. And we had talks on mindfulness and stress reduction for kids, how to approach holistically kids who have ADD or autism or eczema or asthma or gut issues. So many good talks on nutrition, autoimmune illness. So I was so inspired with every single interview that I did, and I wish this is information that every single parent would have at some point. And I do plan to host another summit next fall. I couldn't help myself. There's so much information to get out there. So I do set an intention to host another Thriving Child Summit in the fall of 2017.
Great. And so if people subscribe to your Healthy Kids, Happy Kids list, they would get information about that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move into hearing more about how you live your epic life. I think we've started to delve in now to the P, how you are passionate and purposeful, making a difference beyond your family.
Mm-hmm.
The E stands for engaging mindfully with your children. And I'd
Yes.
like to hear how you consciously do that.
Well, I mentioned before that, and this is something I actually talk about with a lot of my parents who come in, that this to me is one of my biggest challenges, to engage mindfully in, almost every moment with my kids when I'm with them. And the reason I think that many of us find it challenging, and I find it challenging, is because there's so many things that pull us away from being present in the moment. And, whether or not you have a full-time job, you certainly have, I mean, we all have so many things on our to-do list. And so at any given moment, I might be thinking about, um, what I have to do for the practice, some of the kids that I've seen that are, have challenging situations, what I want to write next on my, pediatric blog, what groceries I have to pick up to cook in the kids' classroom, what we're going to eat for dinner. And so my mind can get filled with all that chatter. And then, of course, our smartphones don't help, right? Because we're connected and on all the time. And so then there's this constant need to feel as though you have to check your emails in case there's something urgent that came in, or, just quickly glance at Facebook or whatever it is. So I feel like I have so many things pulling me away from really staying connected with my kids in that moment when I'm with them. So my challenge, and I try to practice this, and it's a work in progress, is to really just put down my phone, turn it off, turn on buzz, just out of sight, out of mind when I'm with my kids. And really spend that time that I have with them, because it typically is maybe, a 10-15 minute block of time that they even want to spend completely engaged with me. So if I can have that time with them where we are both completely engaged with each other, it's so meaningful and so fun. And then we feel like, okay, now if Kenzie would like to go, do some drawings, or Bodhi would like to go play his Lego, then that's my time that I can disengage a bit and check my emails, right? And
I
so,
love that you take the cue from them.
yes. Well, and that points to, we had spoken about, there's an amazing parenting organization called Hand in Hand Parenting. And Patty Whitfler, who is the founder of of Hand in Hand Parenting, she spoke on the Thriving Child Summit on the 5 tools of parenting by connection. One of those tools is special time. And I think that is one way that we can actually very purposefully engage mindfully with our kids. And so special time, it's nothing, it's not an extraordinary concept, but it's just something we have to do. So what special time means is that there's time carved out for you and your kids where, literally you do anything that is directed by your child. If they want to get on the floor and, roar like lions, and, you can be the mama lion and they want to be the baby lion, then you do that, right? If they want to go for a walk, around the block, or if they want to go to the park. But for that time, the time is spent in the way that the child would like to. And they feel special and empowered, right? And it builds that warmth and connection with your child that can last for days, right? So the special time doesn't have to be every day. And in fact, in reality, with many of us having more than one child, it's not going to happen every day. But if you do it even just once a week, where your child knows it's their special time and it's their time to literally be the boss, right? And then every other time is time that they share with their sibling, or share with your work, or share, with their father, right, or their other parent, right? Then it's okay, because they know that they're going to have that special time to look forward to again. And so what I talk to parents about is really literally scheduling it, right? Making that special time a priority, showing your kids that it's a priority, and showing them that, hey, you know what, Bodhi, I have to be on this work call right now, but look, our special time is scheduled for tomorrow at 5 o'clock at night. As soon as I get home, we're going to have 15 minutes of special time before I start cooking dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they know that it's in your calendar, that you're not going to forget it, and that it's a priority. So I think that helps me engage mindfully with my kids, in addition to just disconnecting, right, from media and from my phone and email.
Yeah, both of those things, putting away my phone and creating more of those opportunities for special time, are on my priority list as well.
Yep.
So the I in EPIC is invested in yourself. And I'm wondering how you do that. And I've had particular curiosity for you as a healer, how you're able to stay grounded and filled when you're having to give so much of yourself emotionally to your families that you're working with.
This is an area that I think is the lowest priority for myself, and I do need to say shame on me, right? Because I say that to parents, especially mothers, right, all the time. You have to make yourself a priority, and I definitely don't lead that by example. So I think for me, one of my biggest investments is really, it's sleep. I could stay up, you and I were both night owls, right? And, I often see you on Facebook and we message each other, way too late. But then we have to get up, right, at 6:30 in the morning to get ready for the day, get breakfast made for the kids, help pack school bags, whatever it might be. So, my investment, and I've really tried to make this a priority, is to get at least 7 hours of sleep each night, because then I have so much more patience to be mindful with my kids, and I have so much more focus to live, and pursue my passions beyond my family. Right? I can more effectively lead an epic life if I'm well rested, and that's true for everyone. And I think that mamas in general are really not very good at prioritizing themselves, and certainly not at prioritizing sleep. So that is for sure something I need to continue to work on. But I think that sleep is one of the biggest investments I can make for myself, and that most moms can make for themselves.
So I really appreciate your honesty that this is a struggle for you. And I also know that there are some things that you have done for yourself to get to this point. And I want to encourage you to think about some way in which, whether it's learning that you've exposed yourself to, or something that has really supported you in your own growth, that has made a difference.
Well, I think for me, when I know that, in years past, before children, when I had a regular home yoga practice, and I would wake up, just before sunrise, and be all by myself in the living room, Peter's sound asleep, and just have my own yoga practice, sometimes in complete silence, and sometimes I would have some music on. And those days were so much more smooth and peaceful, and just overall productive, right? And so I think that is something that I would love to get back to, because I know how much, when I actually do practice mindfulness and yoga and meditate, that the value is tremendous. It goes well beyond that 45 minutes, hour that I spend in the morning. So, and then the other thing I realized too is, how often as mamas, and how often for me, there is not a single moment to have silence.
Right.
Right. And I don't necessarily mean silence around you. I mean also silence in your own mind.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think for me, realizing that, yes, I love to see people, connect with them, talk with them, engage with my kids, be with my husband. I need to be able to rejuvenate by having that quiet time mentally and literally physically in the space around me. So that is another priority, as I thought about, what that means to be an epic life. that, in the year to come, we're just right around, 2017 is here, that this will be a time where I spend, just schedule in maybe one evening a month where I just can go to a coffee shop and be all by myself. So I think, that is another investment that I can make and that parents and mamas can make and not feel guilty about, right? That time that you do have for yourself means that you actually have more space and time in your mind and in your heart to be with your kid and your partner.
Well, I appreciate that you are articulating this now as we're approaching the new year, and let's make an effort to support one another in these goals.
Absolutely.
Get ourselves to sleep earlier when we see that one
Yes, so if I
another is
see you at 2 in the morning online, I will send you a virtual little scolding.
So we're at the C now in E.P.I.C, which is connected to a strong support network. And I'd like to hear about where you find your most powerful connections.
Well, I've been really fortunate throughout my life to have amazing supports, both personally and professionally. Personally, my family, my husband, I could not ever ask for better supports. And this is, from my mother supporting whatever desire I had, as a high school and in college, to pursue as a career. Even, back then when, I was in at Stanford undergraduate, and I knew that I wanted to work with kids and probably do pediatric medicine, but I was really drawn to naturopathic care, and had looked at a really highly regarded naturopathic medical school called Bastyr. But of course, back then my mother had no idea what that was. But she said, I'll support you if that's what you want to do. I know what a medical doctor is because that's what I am, and I think I would probably like you to do that if you are interested in pediatrics. But she never said no. She never said you shouldn't do that or you can't do that. Right? She always said, she gave me good advice, but in the end, it was my decision to make. And my sisters, they've always had confidence in me, and my husband, he is, he's been my biggest fan. Even when my plans were completely crazy, right? To start up this back, over 10 years ago, this solo holistic pediatric practice, right? In a community of very conventional doctors. He never said, don't do it. He never said, I don't think you can. He always said, it's going to be a lot of work, but if that's your dream, we're going to do it together. Right. So I've been so blessed in that way. And I don't think I've ever had anyone say to me, my friends or my family, that's crazy, you can't do it. Right. They've always said, okay, I see your passion and you can do it, go for it. And, professionally, it's been a little bit slower to find that strong support network. I have a lot of friends who are conventional pediatricians who I dearly love, but, aren't able to really fully support my career as an integrative pediatrician. So it was 2 years ago where I found this organization, this group called the Mind Share Summit. And it's a group of like-minded health professionals, from fitness and nutrition professionals to chiropractors to medical doctors to acupuncturists, naturopathic doctors, all with this mission to bring their work out into the public, to bring it online, to make it virtual so that everyone can access it. And that's been amazing. I go to now, as a priority, the Mindshare Summit conference every summer in August. Which is always so inspiring and informative. And they have a private Facebook group that provides such great emotional support and also real sort of practical support for what I need to do to bring Healthy Kids online, Healthy Kids, Happy Kids online, or to actually host an online summit. All of these things that I've never ever done before. So that's been really, I think, in my mind, a godsend 2 years ago to have found them and to have agreed to then be part of the Mindshare Summit. And that's really the reason why I was able to launch Healthy Kids, Happy Kids and do the summit. I mean, without that, I think I still would have these big ideas in my head of doing something, but not knowing how to do it. So I give all the credit to propelling me forward into action to that group.
It's amazing that you found that. And you actually referenced something that I've always been curious about. And I have this theory that for many of us, when we go on to live our epic life, there's some kind of a spark,
Uh-huh.
some moment or a series of moments that set us on the path. And I've always wondered whether you had an experience like that had you go out on your own, away from a mainstream medical practice, to create this amazing whole family wellness practice that you have now. What spurred you to do that?
That's funny. I was actually having this conversation just yesterday with a family whose son, he's a freshman in college, so he's not a young boy anymore. But I started seeing him when he was 12, and he was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And we were talking about different practitioners that they'd gone to, and ultimately, thankfully, I was able to help him and his older sister, who also has an autoimmune condition, get into remission using an integrative, more natural approach, a functional medicine approach. And we were discussing that most holistic practitioners have come into that world because of some health crisis of their own, or a health crisis of a family member who has that's propelled them to seek care outside of that conventional box. And I never had anything like that. I knock on wood. I'm going to knock on my head right now that I'm fairly healthy. My children, my family members, they've all been healthy. We really don't have a lot of chronic illness in our family. So it was really, for me, I don't know, something that I've just always been drawn to, I think, as a way to really heal kids, and not just put band-aids on their symptoms. And I guess the eye opener was really when I was at Stanford, my senior year, when I was really considering going into medicine. Before that, I actually wanted to be a teacher or a lawyer or a public policy advocate. And my goal was to work with the Children's Defense Fund. But I went to this conference, and back then it was the American Holistic Medical Association. And this was when really big names nowadays in holistic and alternative medicine were just being discovered, like Andrew Weil and Deepak Chopra. So I went to this conference, and I don't even know how I heard about it, what even drove me to go there, because I was a senior. I mean, nobody went with me, but I mean, I was fascinated, intrigued, mind-body medicine, nutritional medicine, natural medicine. It was just mind-blowing. And I think from there, once I did end up going to medical school and doing my pediatric residency, I always brought that passion and that enthusiasm for a more holistic way of care into all of my education. So I think that was the spark. I mean, that was really what lighted my fire, right? That lighted that passion and my desire to really only practice in this holistic way.
Well, I'm so grateful that you went to that conference and chose this path. Anyone who listens to the interview you did with me can hear more about the journey I had with my son, Ryan, and also some of the challenges even with Jake, and just how helpful it has been to have you hold this larger perspective and many different ways of approaching their health, which has really helped them both to thrive. So thank goodness you went down that path.
I know we find our path somehow, right? And sometimes the path finds us. And I think we just have to be willing to open our eyes, keep them open, and see the signs in front of us, and be ready to take them.
I agree. So we're getting close to the end of our time. I want to ask you, as you've been on your quest, what do you feel like are the biggest lessons that you've learned?
Wow. I guess really what I would say, one of my biggest lessons in life, as a child and as a young woman and now as a mother is really to, be that person that you want your kids to be, right? And I had found this quote that I shared on my Facebook page, and I still think about it, every day, and I have it printed out and it's sitting in front of me. And it said, live your life as the woman you want your daughter to be. And I have a son, right? So just live your life as the person you want your kids to be, when they grow up. And if you can do that, in every moment, even in your not so fine moments, there is a way to shine and be humble and acknowledge that, nobody's perfect and life isn't about being perfect. It's about learning from your mistakes and your challenges, and then being perseverant and moving on. I think that's the lesson I always learn, right? Is just you keep moving on, right? You don't give up. You look for the positive, you look for all the successes, and then you learn from the challenges. And that's what I would love my kids to learn and be able to live the rest of their life. I don't want their life to be necessarily all about easiness. I want their life to be about feeling proud of themselves and feeling successful and feeling like they can do what they put their minds to. And that means I have to believe that myself.
You had this post recently where you talked about this word, and I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly, eudaimonism.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is
Yes.
reminding me of that. Can you share a little bit more about what that is?
Absolutely, because I love this way of thinking about happiness. And the post I wrote, the title was How to Make Your Kids Happy. And some of the parents who hadn't read the post yet had made some comments, to me that, well, it isn't our job as parents to make our kids happy. But then when you read the post, it's really about how to define happiness in a way that is achievable and healthful. And there's this Greek word called eudaimonia. So eudaimonia in Greek stands for happiness, but it more specifically means human flourishing or thriving, right, is a more accurate translation. So there's this concept of happiness called eudaimonism that really defines happiness in terms of seeking a higher purpose, in seeking a way to help ourselves and others thrive, which is a distinct way of looking at happiness compared with hedonism. And hedonism is happiness that's found in the pure pursuit of pleasure, right? That chocolate bar looks really great, so I'm going to have that right now. And that's hedonism, right? It's seeking immediate gratification and pleasure in the moment. Now, we need both, right? And kids are mostly hedonic beings when they're young, right? They do things because it makes them feel good and it makes them feel happy. However, as we mature, it's really important to understand that ultimately our health and well-being is going to be nurtured more if we can incorporate a eudaimonic way of living. And if we have a higher purpose, if we strive to reach a higher goal and live something broader, studies have actually found that our immune system works better, that we fight off infections better, that our stress hormone levels are improved with, versus the complete opposite with a hedonic way of living. So eudaimonism and, pursuing this higher good leads to healthier, thriving lives. And that really is part of living that epic life. So I love that part of your vision for Mother's Quest and for empowering moms is to let them know that yes, the P in epic, really pursuing this passion and purpose beyond your family is so important for themselves and for their kids. So I hope that that's something that, as parents, we can also instill in our kids, that when we live that more purposeful life beyond our family, even if it means sometimes we're not necessarily at home all the time with our kids, it serves everyone, and it serves our kids, and it serves us, so much better.
Yeah, I remember in the first interview that we did, you were talking about the impact of when you were working on the summit, that you were away from your kids often, but it was interesting how they responded.
Oh yeah, I mean, hosting the Thriving Child Summit, I was up, for weeks and weeks on end, just doing interviews late at night, early in the morning before the kids got up, I'd be out of the house, and so every day, when I saw the kids, or my husband saw the kids and took them to school, they'd ask, well, is this an interview day for Mama? Does Mama have an interview tonight? Because they knew if I did, I wouldn't be home for dinner, and I might not be home to put them to bed. And, not once did they ever complain. They knew that the summit, was so meaningful for me, and it was so inspirational, and it was really doing such a service and doing so much good for parents everywhere that, they never said, why aren't you home tonight? Why haven't we had dinner with you in a while? So that was really inspiring for me. Our kids can feel when we are doing something that is nurturing ourselves and nurturing others, and I think that even if that means a little less sort of hedonic wellness for them,
Mhm.
the message gets across, and they end up being so much better for it.
I'm sure that what you were doing had an impact on them in a really positive way, that they
Yeah.
saw you pursuing something that was so meaningful to you and they knew it was making a difference.
Yeah, yeah. I want them to be able to know that if they have a passion, that they should pursue it, and that they can do it, and that they'll be supported in the way that I've been.
So, before we move to acknowledgments, which is the way I like to end every podcast, I also invite um, the guests to share a challenge or an offering for people who are listening to support us in living our epic life. So, what would you like to offer us?
Well, so I had mentioned hand-in-hand parenting, and how the 5 tools to parent by connection for me have been so impactful. Um, First, when I was a pediatric resident, and as a pediatrician now, in really pointing parents in my practice to an amazing parenting resource when they're going through challenges with their kids, who are having tantrums, or are being aggressive, or are having night terrors, or are acting out in whatever way. And then, when I had my kids, I used them as an amazing resource for me to get back on track with parenting by connection with my son, when he was little. And so I really, would like parents to understand those 5 tools, which include special time, right? And understand how to incorporate um, all of those tools, know what they are, and have a resource to turn to if they're going through a challenging time with their kids. And even not, I mean, these are tools that you can use every day, not just when you're having a challenging time. But, for that, my challenge, first of all, is for the mamas and the papas listening out there, and it's going to be mostly mamas, um, listening to the Mother's Quest podcast, to force yourself to pencil in some special time with your child or children, once a week or once a month, whatever feels right for you. But just get it on the calendar and
Actually, put it on the calendar.
put it on the
Yeah.
calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it's too easy to say, I'll do it tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? Or I'll do it when I have time. And you'll never have enough time. You'll only have time if you make the time, right? And so put it on your calendar, start practicing special time. You and your kids will reap so many benefits from it. It'll be unbelievable. And then, as my gift to the listeners, I'd like to offer the listeners the interview that I had with Patty Whipfler on the 5 parenting tools to parent by connection, so that they can really um, learn from one of the most calming, nurturing parenting experts in the world on how to truly listen to your kids and connect with them and handle all of the everyday parenting challenges that they might face. So that will be
Wonderful.
available. I'll send that link to you so that moms can download that and listen to that.
And I've seen some of the videos that Patty has done, and she is amazing, but I didn't get to hear your interview with her, so I will be listening. I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Oh, she's amazing. She's an amazing speaker, an amazing teacher, an amazing nurturer. So I'm so happy to share that with everyone.
So I want to end with an opportunity just to say what some of the biggest takeaways have been for me and for you to share that as well. I'm really struck by this picture of the legacy that your grandmother and your mother have passed on to you and your sisters, and just the power of the example that we set for our children. You're a living example of what happened when they lived their epic life. And I know that that's happening now with how your children see you living your purpose. I'm also really committed to scheduling time for special time with my kids, and doing it with Ryan too, even though he's older.
I think that as our kids get older and start to pull away, as they naturally will, more towards their peers and away from their parents and family, it's even more important to schedule that special time.
Yeah. And then I also just really want to honor that you had this conviction to take a different path. It could have been very easy just to stay with mainstream medicine, but that you had this vision and you found the support from your husband and then from this professional network that you found to chart a different course, which has been so valuable to so many families. Thank you for all of those things and for sharing more about it in this interview today.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story. I think as I was preparing to speak with you about what it means for me to have an epic life, it was such a great opportunity for me to really go back and reflect on my childhood and really what made me the woman and the mother I am today. I hadn't really ever reflected on that. So that feels like an amazing gift to me that you gave. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that we got this one recorded.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, head over to mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and help us spread the word. I want to end with some words to light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.